Exclusive, FBI document warns conspiracy theories are a new domestic terrorism threat. Jana Winter. The FBI for the first time has identified fringe conspiracy theories as a domestic terrorist threat, according to a previously unpublicized document obtained by Yahoo News. Read the document below. The FBI intelligence bulletin from the Bureau's Phoenix Field Office, dated May 30, 2019, describes conspiracy theory-driven domestic extremists, as a growing threat, and notes that it is the first such report to do so. It lists a number of arrests, including some that haven't been publicized, related to violent incidents motivated by fringe beliefs. The document specifically mentions Canon, a shadowy network that believes in a deep state conspiracy against President Trump, and Pizzagate, the theory that a pedophile ring including Clinton associates was being run out of the basement of a Washington, D.C., pizza restaurant, which didn't actually have a basement. The FBI assesses these conspiracy theories very likely will emerge, spread, and evolve in the modern information marketplace, occasionally driving both groups and individual extremists to carry out criminal or violent acts, the document states. It also goes on to say the FBI believes conspiracy theory-driven extremists are likely to increase during the 2020 presidential election cycle. The FBI said another factor driving the intensity of this threat is the uncovering of real conspiracies or cover-ups involving illegal, harmful, or unconstitutional activities by government officials or leading political figures. The FBI does not specify which political leaders or which cover-ups it was referring to. President Trump is mentioned by name briefly in the latest FBI document, which notes that the origins of Canon is the conspiratorial belief that Q, allegedly a government official, posts classified information online to reveal a covert effort, led by President Trump, to dismantle a conspiracy involving deep state actors and global elites allegedly engaged in an international child sex trafficking ring. This recent intelligence bulletin comes as the FBI is facing pressure to explain who it considers an extremist, and how the government prosecutes domestic terrorists. In recent weeks, the FBI director has addressed domestic terrorism multiple times but did not publicly mention this new conspiracy theorist threat. The FBI is already under fire for its approach to domestic extremism. In a contentious hearing last week before the Senate Judiciary Committee, FBI Director Christopher Wray faced criticism from Democrats who said the Bureau was not focusing enough on white supremacist violence. The term white supremacist, white nationalist is not included in your statement to the committee when you talk about threats to America, Senator Richard Durbin, D.L., said. There is a reference to racism, which I think probably was meant to include that, but nothing more specific. Wray told lawmakers the FBI had done away with separate categories for black identity extremists and white supremacists, and said the Bureau was instead now focusing on racially motivated violence. But he added, I will say that a majority of the domestic terrorism cases that we've investigated are motivated by some version of what you might call white supremacist violence. The FBI had faced mounting criticism for the term black identity extremists, after its use was revealed by Foreign Policy magazine in 2017. Critics pointed out that the term was an FBI invention based solely on race, since no group or even any specific individuals actually identify as black identity extremists. In May, Michael C. McGarrity, the FBI's Assistant Director of the Counterterrorism Division, told Congress the Bureau now classifies domestic terrorism threats into four main categories: racially motivated violent extremism, anti-government/anti-authority extremism, animal rights, environmental extremism, and abortion extremism, a term the Bureau uses to classify both pro-choice and anti-abortion extremists. The new focus on conspiracy theorists appears to fall under the broader category of anti-government extremism. This is the first FBI product examining the threat from conspiracy theory-driven domestic extremists and provides a baseline for future intelligence products, the document states. The new category is different in that it focuses not on racial motivations, but on violence based specifically on beliefs that, in the words of the FBI document, attempt to explain events or circumstances as the result of a group of actors working in secret to benefit themselves at the expense of others and are usually at odds with official or prevailing explanations of events. The FBI acknowledges conspiracy theory-driven violence is not new, but says it has gotten worse with advances in technology combined with an increasingly partisan political landscape in the lead-up to the 2020 presidential election. The advent of the Internet and social media has enabled promoters of conspiracy theories to produce and share greater volumes of material via online platforms that larger audiences of consumers can quickly and easily access. The document says. The bulletin says it is intended to provide guidance and informed discussions within law enforcement as they relate to potentially harmful conspiracy theories and domestic extremism. The FBI Phoenix Field Office referred Yahoo News to the Bureau's National Press Office, which provided a written statement. While our standard practice is to not comment on specific intelligence products, the FBI routinely shares information with our law enforcement partners in order to assist in protecting the communities they serve, the FBI said. In its statement, the FBI also said it can never initiate an investigation based solely on First Amendment protected activity. As with all of our investigations, the FBI can never monitor a website or a social media platform without probable cause. The Department of Homeland Security, which has also been involved in monitoring domestic extremism, did not return or acknowledge emails and phone requests for comment. While not all conspiracy theories are deadly, those identified in the FBI's 15-page report led to either attempted or successfully carried out violent attacks. For example, the Pizzagate conspiracy led a 28-year-old man to invade a Washington, D.C., restaurant to rescue the children he believed were being kept there, and fire an assault-style weapon inside. The FBI document also cites an unnamed California man who was arrested on December 19, 2018, after being found with what appeared to be bomb-making materials in his car. The man allegedly was planning blow up a satanic temple monument in the Capitol Rotunda in Springfield, Ill, to make Americans aware of Pizzagate and the New World Order, who were dismantling society. The document says. Historian David Groh, the author of a Pulitzer Prize-winning biography of Martin Luther King Jr. who has worked extensively with FBI archives, raised doubts to Yahoo News about the memo. He says the FBI's default assumption is that violence is motivated by ideological beliefs rather than mental illness. The guy who shot up the pizza place in D.C., do we think of him as a right-wing activist, or insane? Groh asked. Groh was similarly critical of the FBI's use of the term black identity extremists and related attempts to ascribe incidents like the 2016 shooting of 6 police officers in Baton Rouge, La, to black radicalism. He said the shooter, Gavin Long, had a history of mental health problems. The Bureau's presumption the mindset is to see ideological motives where most of the rest of us see individual nuttiness, he said. Identifying conspiracy theories as a threat could be a political lightning rod, since President Trump has been accused of promulgating some of them, with his frequent references to a deep state and his praise in 2015 for Alex Jones, who runs the conspiracy site InfoWars. While the FBI intelligence bulletin does not mention Jones or InfoWars by name, it does mention some of the conspiracy theories frequently associated with the far-right radio host, in particular the concept of the New World Order. Jones claimed the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, in which 26 children were killed, was a hoax, a false flag operation intended as a pretext for the government to seize or outlaw firearms. The families of a number of victims have sued Jones for defamation, saying his conspiracy mongering contributed to death threats and online abuse they have received. While Trump has never endorsed Sandy Hook denialism, he was almost up until the 2016 election the most high-profile promoter of the birther conspiracy that claimed former President Barack Obama was not born in the United States. He later dropped his claim, and deflected criticism by pointing the finger at Hillary Clinton. He said her campaign had given birth to the conspiracy, and Trump finished it. There is no evidence that Clinton started the birther conspiracy. Joe Uscinski, an associate professor of political science at the University of Miami, whose work on conspiracy theories is cited in the Intelligence Bulletin, said there is no data suggesting conspiracy theories are any more widespread now than in the past. There is absolutely no evidence that people are more conspiratorial now, says Uscinski, after Yahoo News described the bulletin to him. They may be, but there is not strong evidence showing this. It's not that people are becoming more conspiratorial, says Uscinski, but conspiracies are simply getting more media attention. We are looking back at the past with very rosy hindsight to forget our beliefs, pre-internet, in JFK, assassination, conspiracy theories and Red Scares. My gosh, we have conspiracy theories about the King of England, written into the Declaration of Independence, he said, referencing claims that the king was planning to establish tyranny over the American colonies. It's not that conspiracy theorists are growing in number, Uscinski argues, but that media coverage of those conspiracies has grown. For most of the last 50 years, 60 to 80% of the country believe in some form of JFK conspiracy theory, he said. They obviously not all extremist. Conspiracy theories, including Russia's role in creating and promoting them, attracted widespread attention during the 2016 presidential election when they crossed over from internet chat groups to mainstream news coverage. Yahoo News' Conspiracyland podcast recently revealed that Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service was the origin of a hoax report that tied the murder of Seth Rich, a Democratic National Committee staffer, to Hillary Clinton. Washington police believed that Rich was killed in a botched robbery, and there is no proof that his murder had any political connections. Among the violent conspiracy theories cited in the May FBI document is one involving a man who thought Transportation Security Administration agents were part of a New World Order. Another focused on the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HAARP, a government-funded facility in Alaska that has been linked to everything from death beams to mind control. The two men arrested in connection with HAARP were stockpiling weapons, ammunition and other tactical gear in preparation to attack the facility, believing it was being used to control the weather and prevent humans from talking to God. Nate Snyder, who served as a Department of Homeland Security counterterrorism official during the Obama administration, said that the FBI appears to be applying the same radicalization analysis it employs against foreign terrorism, like the Islamic State group, which has recruited followers in the United States. The domestic violent extremists cited in the bulletin are using the same playbook that groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda have used to inspire, recruit and carry out attacks, said Snyder, after reviewing a copy of the bulletin provided by Yahoo News. You put out a bulletin and say this is the content they re-looking at, and it's some guy saying he is a religious cleric or philosopher, and then you look at the content, videos on YouTube, etc., that they are pushing and show how people in the US might be radicalized by that content. Though the FBI document focuses on ideological motivations, FBI Director Wray, in his testimony last week, asserted that the FBI is concerned only with violence, not people's beliefs. The FBI doesn't investigate ideology, no matter how repugnant, he told lawmakers. We investigate violence. And any extremist ideology, when it turns to violence, we are all over it. In the first 3 quarters of this year, we've had more domestic terrorism arrests than the prior year, and it's about the same number of arrests as we have on the international terrorism side. Yet the proliferation of the extremist categories concerns Michael German, a former FBI agent and now a fellow with the Brennan Center for Justice, Liberty and National Security program. It's part of the radicalization theory the FBI has promoted despite empirical studies that show it's bogus, he said. German says this new category is a continuing part of FBI overreach. They like the radicalization theory because it justifies mass surveillance, he said. If we know everyone who will do harm is coming from this particular community, mass surveillance is important. We keep broadening the number of communities we include in extremist categories. Figaro, the historian, the FBI's expansive definition has its roots in bureau paranoia that dates back decades. I think it's their starting point, he said. This goes all the way back to the Hoover era without question. They see ideology as a central motivating factor in human life, and they don't see mental health issues as a major factor. Yet trying to label a specific belief system as prone to violence is problematic, he said. I don't think most of us would do a good job in predicting what sort of wacky information could lead someone to violence, or not lead anyone to violence, Garo said. Pizzagate would be a great example of that. While Trump may not be supportive of labeling a group like Canon, which sees him as a hero, as extremist, he is in favor of broadening the number of organizations that are not labeled as violent extremists, at least on the left. On Saturday, President Trump tweeted that Antifa, a far-left movement opposed to what it considers fascism, should be labeled a terrorist organization. Snyder, the former Homeland Security official, agrees that conspiracy theories may in fact inspire violence and be a threat, but questions what the government is going to do about it. He notes that at the Department of Homeland Security, nearly all, if not all, the intelligence analysts focusing on domestic extremist groups were eliminated under the Trump administration. There is no one doing this, he said.
Critics question Five Eyes push to expand spies' telecoms access. By Mark Hosenball. Former government officials and privacy campaigners are questioning demands by Five Eyes security ministers that high-tech communications systems should remain accessible to spies and official investigators. A meeting in London of security and law enforcement officials from the Five Eyes group expressed concern this week that high-tech companies were moving to deliberately design their systems in a way that precludes any form of access to content, even in cases of the most serious crimes. The group comprises the U.S., Britain, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. They said that tech companies should include mechanisms in the design of their encrypted products and services, whereby governments, acting with appropriate legal authority, can obtain access to data in a readable and usable format. Priti Patel, Britain's new Interior Minister, said that Five Eyes governments were united that tech firms should not develop their systems and services, including end-to-end encryption, in ways that empower criminals or put vulnerable people at risk. Ben Wisner, an expert in national security law with the American Civil Liberties Union, said that the anti-encryption push by security officials, including William Barr, President Donald Trump's Attorney General, who attended the London meeting, in part appear to be directed at Apple, which clashed with the FBI over efforts to decrypt the mobile phone of a mass shooter in California in 2015. Wisner said that any access mechanism that tech companies were required to put into encrypted systems would give U.S. and allied authorities access to private message traffic, and that foreign governments and spy agencies, such as Russia's SVR or FSB, would have legitimate cause to insist that they be allowed to use the same access mechanisms. A former senior European security official said the Five Eyes language regarding the need for government access in telecoms systems was very general at best. The former official noted that one proposal floated recently by some British officials would not leave open a backdoor for official surveillance in encrypted systems, but rather would provide for a wiretap equivalent by tapping a device at one end of the conversation after the message had been decrypted. It doesn't mean weakening encryption, just going around it, the ex-official said of this proposal. But this plan has been sharply attacked by the tech industry. Mark Warner, deputy chairman of the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, said there is no simple approach to how authorities deal with encryption. His spokeswoman said Warner believes that this is an issue that requires a very nuanced discussion, recognizing the enormous value that encryption has for our national security, and the need to equip law enforcement with tools that allow them to use technology to their benefit, rather than seeing technology as an obstacle.
DOJ will not prosecute Comey for leaking memos after Rig referral, sources. By Brooks Singman, Jake Gibson. The Justice Department has decided against prosecuting former FBI Director James Comey for leaking classified information following a referral from the department's Inspector General, sources familiar with the deliberations told Fox News. Everyone at the DOJ involved in the decision said it wasn't a close call, one official said. They all thought this could not be prosecuted. Comey penned the memos memorializing his interactions with President Trump in the days leading up to his firing. He then passed those documents to a friend, Columbia University law professor Daniel Richman, who gave them to the New York Times. Comey admitted to that arrangement during congressional testimony. After the fact, the FBI classified two of those memos as confidential. DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz had referred Comey for potential prosecution as part of an internal review. But one of the key factors leading to the DOJ declining to prosecute apparently was the fact that the two memos were labeled confidential after he set in motion the chain of events that led to them ending up with the press. Richman, now serving as an attorney to Comey, told Fox News he had no comment on the prosecutorial decision on Thursday. Meanwhile, Fox News has learned that the release of Horowitz's report is imminent, according to another source familiar with the investigation. The report related to Comey's leaks is separate from Horowitz's review of alleged Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, abuses. The report's release is delayed, according to sources, due to the potential components of Attorney General Bill Barr and U.S. Attorney John Durham's investigation into alleged improper government surveillance. Horowitz publicly confirmed last year that his office was investigating Comey for his handling of classified information as part of memos he shared documenting his discussions with the president. In June 2018, during a hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Horowitz said he received a referral on that from the FBI, and was handling that referral. We will issue a report when the matter is complete and consistent with the law and rules, Horowitz said at the time. Comey last year also confirmed to Fox News that the Inspector General's office had interviewed him with regard to memos, but downplayed the questions over classified information as frivolous, saying the real issue was whether he complied with internal policies. Fox News learned last year that Horowitz was looking at whether classified information was given to unauthorized sources as part of a broader review of Comey's communications outside the Bureau, including media contact. Comey, whom Trump fired in May 2017, denied that sharing the memos with his legal team constituted a leak of classified information. Instead, he compared the process to keeping a diary. I didn't consider it part of an FBI file, Comey told Fox News' Bret Baier last year. It was my personal aid memo. I always thought of it as mine. In his testimony in June 2017 before the Senate Intelligence Committee, Comey said he made the decision to document the interactions with the president in a way that would not trigger security classification. But in 7 Comey memos handed over to Congress in April 2018, 8 of the 15 pages had redactions under classified exceptions. Comey, during his June 2017 testimony, said he deliberately leaked a memo from a key meeting with Trump to a friend after he was fired in order to prompt the appointment of a special counsel. I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel, Comey testified. I was worried that the media was camping at the end of my driveway. My wife and I were going away, Comey said. I was worried it would be like feeding seagulls at the beach if it was I who gave it to the media. So I asked my friend to. The New York Times published the report with Comey's memos on May 16, 2017, revealing the contents of the memo, which said the president asked him to shut down the federal investigation into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn in an Oval Office meeting. On May 17, Robert Mueller was appointed as special counsel to lead the Russia investigation.
Jeffrey Epstein's bizarre blue-striped building on private island raised alarm. Rich Shapiro. The bizarre blue-striped building on Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean island was supposed to be a music pavilion with a strikingly different design, according to permit records viewed by NBC News. The building, shaped like a giant box and initially topped with a gold dome, has fueled rampant speculation and online conspiracy theories. Drawings supplied by Epstein's architects to the U.S. Virgin Islands agency that oversees coastal development show that it was designed to be a haven for music, an octagonal 3,500 square foot pavilion housing a grand piano. But questions remain over whether it was built according to the plans that were submitted to the Department of Planning and Natural Resources. Those 2010 plans, which were part of a permit application that raised concerns inside the agency, included drawings of a building that looks almost nothing like the structure that was built. The drawings show a building with a 10-foot facade, stone exterior and multiple windows. The structure that was erected has no windows or stone exterior and appears to rise at least 30 feet. One Department of Planning and Natural Resources acknowledged that there were differences. The major difference seems to be in the shape of the building itself, Marlon Hibbert of the Department of Planning and Natural Resources said in an email request that contained a link to a photo of the odd-looking structure. In the link you provided, the building looks rectangular and in the drawings it looked octagonal. But neither Hibbert nor his fellow top officials responded to subsequent requests asking if the agency approved the building as it now appears. It's no surprise that Epstein would have wanted a grand music room on his private island. Friends and former co-workers have described Epstein, a wealthy financier now accused of trafficking and sexually abusing young girls, as a talented pianist.
Trump says he'll put 10% tariffs on remaining China imports. By Paul Wiseman, Kevin Freaking and Josh Boak. President Donald Trump intensified pressure Thursday on China to reach a trade deal by saying he will impose 10% tariffs September 1 on the remaining $300 billion in Chinese imports he hasn't already taxed. The move immediately sent stock prices sinking. The president has already imposed 25% tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese products, and Beijing has retaliated by taxing $110 billion in U.S. goods. U.S. consumers are likely to feel the pain if Trump proceeds with the new tariffs. Trump's earlier tariffs had been designed to minimize the impact on ordinary Americans by focusing on industrial goods. The new tariffs will hit a vast range of consumer products from cell phones to silk scarves. The president's announcement via Twitter came as a surprise, in part because the White House on Wednesday had said Beijing confirmed that it planned to increase its purchases of American farm products. That word came just as U.S. and Chinese negotiators were ending a 12th round of trade talks in Shanghai, which the White House called constructive. Though the negotiations ended without any sign of a deal, they are scheduled to resume next month in Washington. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, which had been up nearly 300 points earlier in the day, was down nearly 200 points after Trump's tweets announcing the new tariffs. Trump has long said he was preparing to tax the $300 billion in additional Chinese tariffs. But he had suspended the threat after meeting with President Xi Jinping in Osaka, Japan, in June. It isn't clear when American consumers are likely to feel the impact of the additional tariffs, but higher prices could show up in stores this fall. Attention all Target and Walmart shoppers, the price on the goods you buy ahead of the holidays are going up due to trade policy, tweeted Joseph Bruce-Ellis, chief economist at the consultancy RSM. Besides announcing the additional tariffs on Chinese imports, Trump tweeted that we look forward to continuing our positive dialogue with China on a comprehensive trade deal, and feel that the future between our two countries will be a very bright one. Trump accused Beijing of failing to follow through on stopping the sale of fentanyl to the United States or on purchasing large quantities of farm goods such as soybeans. The world's two biggest economies are locked in a trade war over U.S. allegations that Beijing uses predatory tactics, including stealing trade secrets and forcing foreign companies to hand over technology, in a drive to overtake American technological dominance. Talks had broken down in May after the United States accused the Chinese of reneging on earlier commitments. The fact that this tweet comes after only one meeting with the Chinese delegation following the resumption of talks is extremely concerning, said Rick Helfenbein, president of the American Apparel and Footwear Association. Wendy Cutler, a former U.S. trade negotiator who is now vice president at the Asia Society Policy Institute, said, "These talks are not getting any easier. I don't expect the Chinese to sit by. The combination of these latest tariffs, with Chinese counter-retaliation, is going to take a heavy toll on U.S. consumers, workers, farmers and businesses." Trump's trade war and its consequences were a key factor in the Federal Reserve's decision Wednesday to cut interest rates in an otherwise healthy U.S. economy. During a news conference, Chairman Jerome Powell pointed repeatedly to the uncertainty caused by Trump's pursuit of trade wars on multiple fronts as a reason for the rate cut. The president's decision to impose a 10% tax on an additional $300 billion of Chinese imports might have been predicated, in fact, on his confidence that Powell's Fed stands ready to cut rates again. The bond market signaled its belief in that theory Thursday, with Treasury yields dropping sharply after Trump's announcement. And according to the CME Group, market traders now foresee a roughly 70% likelihood of another rate cut when the Fed next meets in September. Before Trump's announcement, the likelihood was pegged at under 50%. Sarah Bloom Raskin, a former Fed board member, has warned that Fed rate cuts could embolden Trump to escalate trade battles for that very reason. In the meantime, the additional Trump tariffs risk further souring the relationship between the world's two largest economies. The stage is now set for a further escalation of trade tensions between China and the U.S., said Azwar Prasad, a Cornell University economist and former head of the China division at the International Monetary Fund. It has become clear that there is no clear path to a resolution of the trade dispute in the coming months, and China might choose to live with a trade war while waiting out the Trump presidency. Trump has insisted that the tariff war is hurting China but not the United States. He tweeted 2 days ago, "Trump's got China back on its heels, and the United States is doing great." But his administration is providing $16 billion in aid to American farmers, on top of $11 billion last year, to offset sales lost after China imposed retaliatory tariffs on soybeans and other U.S. farm products.
A human trafficking suspect on ICE's most wanted list has been arrested after a years-long manhunt. By Eric Levinson. The suspected ringleader of a human trafficking and narcotics network who'd been on U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's most wanted list was arrested Wednesday night in Michigan after a manhunt that lasted more than 2 years, an agency spokesman said. Derek Bell, 50, was arrested at an Econo Lodge in Monroe, south of Detroit, with nearly $12,000 and suspected cocaine in his motel room, spokesman Khalid Walls said in a statement. A female defendant facing drug charges was also arrested, he said. Bell, a U.S. citizen, is one of 9 defendants charged with sex trafficking, conspiracy, and conspiracy to distribute drugs, among other charges, according to a superseding indictment filed in federal court. The indictment alleges that Bell and others conspired to give drugs to human trafficking victims to control and coerce them into commercial sex work. Authorities had been looking for Bell since January 2017, when nearly 200 law enforcement personnel raided the Victory Inn in Detroit, a motel where Bell allegedly took part in a sophisticated criminal operation manned by lookouts and armed guards, Walls said. Bell escaped the raid. It was not immediately clear if Bell has an attorney. ICE Homeland Security Investigations special agents and deputies with the U.S. Marshal Service, who announced Wednesday's arrest, are still looking for people who allegedly helped Bell evade capture, Walls said. Bell first got the attention of Homeland Security Investigations in September 2016, when an alleged victim escaped the motel, and agents later confirmed he was operating out of the Victory Inn, according to ICE. Detroit police that year noted more than 115 calls to the location for shootings, aggravated assaults and 2 homicides allegedly linked to former motel guests, ICE said. The Victory Inn was ordered to be shuttered the following March by a Wayne County judge who found its owners ignored criminal activity, according to ICE and CNN affiliate XEYES. The motel reportedly was later torn down. Bell, who also went by Tone or Ghost, was considered armed and dangerous, ICE said. He was added to the most wanted list 2 years ago. By adding Tone to the HSI most wanted list, we make the world a much smaller place for him to hide, Steve Francis, then the ICE Investigation Unit's acting special agent in charge in Detroit, said at the time. We're confident that Tone's capture will empower the survivors of his alleged acts, and embolden others who are facing similar circumstances to come forward, knowing that they will be fully supported and that their captors will face justice.